G'day guys, bit of a different one today. I just wanted to have a quick look through Lorne's life up until now with what we know from what he's told us and what other people in the community have been able to find out and how that all fits into Lornography. A bit of a why is Lorne. The reason I wanted to do that is I've had a fair bit of feedback from people saying that they get a bit confused with all the different streams and even the videos, the small amount of videos I've done so far about where does this all fit in. I've been trying to provide context before each video, but it's that vast, so I completely get why it would be confusing. And I myself know when I first came in a few years ago, it was very confusing because you have calls from here and there and who are these characters and all this kind of stuff. So I just wanted to give a brief rundown. It's by no means the definitive rundown. I'm not as much of an expert as others in the community are. But look, if this helps someone and helps new people that come into the community to understand where everything is so they can contribute straight away and we keep people in this fantastic community, then that's brilliant. So at a high level, obviously, Lorne was caught up in one of the To Catch a Predator stings, but there's some key reasons why he kind of sticks out from the rest, and there isn't communities like this around the other predators. The main reason is that rather than kind of scurrying off into obscurity after doing his time in jail like most people would, he decided to come out and try to justify what he did, which obviously he can't do. Also, his chat log was very unique. But I'm just going to go a bit of a run through kind of Lorne from birth to now from what we know, and hopefully that provides context. So when Lorne, we don't know a great deal from when he was little, we just know what he tells us, and usually that's bullshit. But in any case, from what he's told us, he claims that one of his brothers molested him when he was little. I personally don't believe that, and I'll explain why later. But that's what he says. So he was in a basketball team at one stage in school, and he claims that was the fallout from that is another trauma in his life. Basically, once he stopped playing basketball, his friends from there didn't talk to him anymore. What he fails to understand is they weren't friends, they were teammates, but that's whatever. So he finished school 87 out of 87, which that's why you'll see a lot of references in the community calling him 87. Basically a tribute to exactly how stupid he is. After school, he went into the Air Force in Washington State for a while. I actually don't know how long. I don't believe it was very long, and I don't believe he was very successful there. He also set up his own septic business, which, by his recollection, he could make heaps of money doing, but he clearly didn't. Really where he kind of came to prominence and was when he moved to Nashville. And the reason he moved to Nashville is he was doing some work for a elderly couple called Betty and Eric, where he ripped them off. He got paid up front $30,000, and I believe he was just doing, buying beer and all that kind of crap with that money. And then when it came time to actually buy the materials for the job, he went back and asked for more money, clearly not having it anymore. So long story short, he didn't do the job he was paid for. And I believe also the team that consisted of pretty much his family and friends, they did the wrong thing as well. But essentially, he was paid money to do a job, he didn't do it. And rather than being accountable and working with them to either pay their money back or get the job completed, he fled from Maine, where he was born and raised, to Nashville. And the reason he says he went to Nashville is because he always wanted to be a country music star. To me, I think that's I think he would love to be a country music star because he loves country music. But he chose Nashville because that's obviously where country music is, and so he could sell that to people rather than I'm running away from these problems I created, is I'm running to my eventual future. So while in Nashville, and the work he put into becoming a country music star was basically getting drunk and going to karaoke bars, singing terribly, and hoping that a country music agent would come across and discover him, and Lorne Armstrong would be launched. That didn't happen. What he did instead was he got on the internet into Yahoo chat rooms and went around basically talking to every underage girl that he could. One of them that wrote back was a decoy from Perverted Justice, who were working with NBC to make the show To Catch a Predator, who went by the name of Kayla. And they talked for about a month, every single day. It is currently the Great Bapsby and also Baked Salmon, who are two fantastic content creators in this community, are doing the day-by-day of that chat log. So if you are listening to this now, jump onto those each day. Like they're absolutely fantastic. They have different guests on from the community each day to do the different roles. But essentially in this chat log, he starts out really basic grooming tactics of trying to be the protector, making sure that she's okay, and then moves in very quickly, like within the first day, into very, very disgusting sexual talk. So I won't go through that. I'll let you discover what was in there yourself. But essentially that went on for a month, and it resulted in him turning up to the sting house that To Catch a Predator had. And in there he met Chris Hansen. Well, firstly, he met the decoy, who was played by Casey Morrow, who is a small-time actor, I guess. I don't think she's doing acting anymore, which she clearly didn't look like the girl he'd been sent pictures of, and clearly wasn't 13, but that didn't faze Lorne whatsoever. And Chris Hansen comes out, and you can see the video of this online on YouTube, and it is very, very funny. I actually didn't... When I first saw him, I just thought he was a bit of a goofy idiot. I mean, obviously a predator and a pedophile, but also a goofy idiot. But in this talk, he basically tries to blame what he did on a lady called Amanda James, who catfished him and used him to get Dale Earnhardt merchandise. And this here is one of the main reasons I don't believe he was ever molested by his brother, because that story that he tells about Amanda James is clearly to get sympathy, and in his very warped mind, a way that he might be able to walk out of this scot-free. So if that is what you're going for, if you're big kind of take pity on me, this isn't my fault, clearly that is where that story comes up if it's true. Clearly you're running with the I was myself molested as a child to get you out of this, not to go with, hey, some adult ripped me off because I'm an idiot and I can't tell if I'm being catfished or not. But anyway, he didn't do that. He obviously went to trial there, where he was also not only charged with child endangerment, solicitation, all that kind of stuff. He was also, they were going to charge him with intent to make child exploitation material, because in the chat log he talked about wanting to take photos of her naked and her and him having sex. And he also bought a camera to that sting house. So it's clear intent. But in any case, they made a deal with him. They would drop those charges if he pled guilty, which he did. So he went to jail for 5 years. He tells stories in there, and every story that Lorne tells is basically a way to either justify what he did or show what a good guy he is. So he had a dog, and obviously that dog was left when he went to jail. And he tells a story about how one of his friends, who I believe was probably Tony, who we'll talk about later, said to him, I can go get your truck or your dog, it's one or the other. And he was like, of course, no, please, my dog. Which is complete rubbish, because obviously if he's going to go get his truck and hold that for him, that has monetary value. Dogs are amazing, but they don't have a monetary value. They actually cost money. So I highly doubt his friend's like, it's your dog or your truck. But anyway, that's Lorne's story. So he comes out of jail he's now on lifetime probation, which he still to this day believes he'll get off with. There is no way he'll get off. Anyway, when he comes out, instead of kind of fading into obscurity, trying to just live his life with his head down, like pretty much every other predator that was caught in this sting did, he decides to make a YouTube channel. On this YouTube channel, he sings terribly as a way to, I think, also try to get a country music career, which clearly isn't going to happen now that he's a registered sex offender. But he also puts up some videos justifying his actions. And I believe that channel is still available, so if you just type in Lorne Armstrong, that will come up and you can watch all these ridiculous videos. And what he gives as a reason for this, in addition to other crap from his childhood, is that he went and provided money to all of his brothers and sisters for different things, to buy oil, to buy presents for their kids and this kind of stuff. And he gave them money and he said to them, don't worry about giving me anything back. It's a Christmas present. But if you want to give me something back, you can make me some food. And this food was deviled eggs, macaroni and cheese, and something else that probably isn't important. Anyway, they didn't give him those things, and he claims that, that hurt that was caused by that is one example for why he did what he did. Complete rubbish. Also on there, he has some cooking shows and some exercise shows. Check it out. Brilliant stuff. So from this, he got a lot of comments on his YouTube channel, most of them, basically giving him shit for what he was doing and for who he is. But from there, this is where the kind of original catfish calls start. And everything that I'm going to talk about next all formed the original, the dumper as it was called. So it was all these calls that happened with Lorne. There is so much in there. And that is still around. I believe you can still get your hands on that, and I will provide a link if I can find who has a copy of that. But anyway, the very first contact is from a user called Ember Inferno, and who goes by the name of Emma when she calls up Lorne, and basically befriends him and, says that I can see that you were wronged and all this kind of stuff. Obviously, this is all in an effort to get content out of him. So they have a friendship where he talks about a whole lot of bullshit. And then the next person to kind of come into this little scenario is a character by the name of Ramona, and there are heaps of calls with Ramona. And so she comes along and she says that she found him via looking up photos of registered sex offenders, and he was obviously so handsome and so intriguing she had to reach out, which he completely believed, which still blows my mind to this day. Essentially that relationship went through, it started out pretty well. He then turned into a complete abusive asshole, as he does with everyone. And different things happened there. I won't go into great detail, but essentially, just for your context, the doctor came into it. And I've already done some videos on the doctor where basically he gets insanely jealous of because she hurts her knee, and it just continues through this. And eventually he finds out that she's fake through probation kind of telling him, and also I think some members of the community or some just people have found this stuff on YouTube, wrote to him and said, you're being tricked here. So he finds that out, and then she breaks up with him, and it's a very good call. I will do that call where basically she just tells him, yep, you have been tricked, rah, 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 you're a pedophile, you're an awful person, suck shit basically. But amazingly, later on down the track, they get in contact again, and he essentially takes her back. She explains that she was being blackmailed, that's why she did it. The whole time she's had a boyfriend, but he believes that because she put so much effort into this, she must actually love him. Like, this is just how Lorne's mind works. Anyway, that kind of fades off, and the next character to come into it is Casey. Yes, Casey Morrow. There was a catfish character they created pretending to be Casey Morrow, the lady who was the decoy at the Sting House, where basically his life as he knew it ended. So they got in contact, and she claims that she was basically instantly attracted to him when he came there to molest a young girl, and they have a relationship. So as crazy as it is, obviously this wasn't the actual actor Casey Morrow, but someone pretending to be her. So she's very rich. Her father is very rich. Her father's name is Paul. He gets told that Paul actually molested Casey as a child, and Paul also isn't her actual biological father. He hates Paul, but then also Paul offers him a job to work at the lighthouse, and all of a sudden he loves Paul because everything revolves around Lorne and what he can get out of people. This all goes through. There's some pretty cool calls as well, because he, talks about how Casey doesn't need all this money, this kind of stuff. Probably the most interesting call in there is the TSA call, where they basically, Casey says she's going to come and live with him in Maine, because that's all that Lorne ever wants, is someone to come and actually at least visit him, but live with him. And they have a call where they're kind of going through the airport, they're getting chased by airport security, it's just absolutely crazy, and he believes all of it. And look, eventually that kind of peters out too, and from what my understanding is, they stopped that character because the actual Casey Morrow was getting, a lot of not nice messages through that, and decided that it wasn't really nice to involve a real person in that. So Casey goes away, and then Winnie comes on the scene. So Winnie is also voiced by Ember, who plays Emma, and Lorne can never tell the difference. I mean, the voices do sound different, but not that different that you couldn't tell the difference, but Lorne can't tell the difference. So Winnie is a bit of a wreck. She's a drug user. She's pretty much the female Lorne, not in the pedophile sense, but she is pretty abusive herself, and they actually make a pretty good pair. Anyway, that relationship goes through. She's constantly trolling him about being attracted to Dan, who is Emma's husband, who is also bisexual, and all this kind of goes on for a while. Winnie introduces that she has a daughter by the name of Rhoda, who she's 18 years old, but she is clearly intellectually impaired, will I say, and she's very gullible and submissive, and basically Lorne loves that, because it's the closest he can get to what he wants in a child who basically will do whatever he wants and has no control. But she is also legal, so he can't get into trouble there. So he then starts to, behind Winnie's back, have phone sex essentially with Rhoda, which is really disgusting. And then Rhoda actually dies, because when Winnie is in hospital, she is dying. She says that she's, dying. She's kind of the end stages. So she has a end of life, dying with dignity pill that she has inside a brownie, and she's going to have that when she decides to take her life. Lorne doesn't know that there's a pill in there, and Rhoda asks, can I have some of Mum's brownie, which she believes is a hash brownie, and Lorne, who has no right to say if anyone can have something, says, yeah, of course you can, and she eats that, and Rhoda dies. And so then then there's a funeral, which happens over the phone. Lorne's actually at work, crying like a little baby in his truck at work, and then he then says that Winnie needs to send Rhoda's ashes down to him so she can be with family, even though they aren't family. And what a disgusting thing to ask a mother who's just lost their daughter. But the whole thing is, he wants the ashes down there, so then Winnie will feel compelled to move down there to be with her daughter's ashes. He is the most self-obsessed, disgusting person I have ever seen. That doesn't happen, obviously, because these are all just fictional characters, so there's no ashes to send. Anyway, the next thing in this whole saga is Winnie has a stroke. Well, she doesn't actually have a stroke, but she pretends to. Everyone believes she's had a stroke. And then around this time, Winnie's sister Debbie, who is played by Tiffany, comes along, and she hates Lorne because, of course, she does. And then while she's kind of having a stroke, she's trying to get enduring power of attorney over Winnie. They fight heaps and that kind of stuff. Debbie also ends up in hospital, I think, from like a swordfish through the neck. And while in there and while heavily medicated, there's some light flirting between her and Lorne. But pretty much Lorne will take any excuse and any kind of kindness to be that, that person loves them. So he believes that he now has a chance with Debbie. So while Winnie is having had a stroke and basically can barely function in hospital, he asks permission from her to go with Debbie, which she kind of gives, and he takes that as permission. So then he goes after Debbie, who doesn't want anything to do with him, and then he gets pissed off because he's left Winnie, who was apparently his love of his life, clearly not, and so he basically ends up with no one. Winnie comes out of her pretend stroke, reveals that she never had a stroke, it was just a test for Lorne, and he failed, so he gets pissed off with that. And then also around this time, while they're all in hospital, Jamie Amy comes along, who Jamie Amy is a porn star and is friends with Debbie and Winnie and Will and all the... Will is also another person that's in there. There's a heap of characters. And so Lorne keeps telling her that, she shouldn't be a porn star because she's worth more than that. All this kind of really condescending bullshit. And they don't like each other too because, he's an asshole. And he just then keeps trying. He puts all his effort into trying to get Debbie to go out with him. And in amongst all of this, he gets caught by probation, essentially for drinking and lying to them. They pretty much had a really big case full of all the stuff he was doing wrong, and eventually I think they got sick of his shit, so they call him in, which he thinks he's just going in for a routine meeting, and he goes in and he goes directly to jail. He's in jail for 6 months. While he's in there, there's several calls where he's being trolled pretty heavily, which there's some awesome ones in there where basically they just waste all of his money that he has for phone calls, and that money that he got from his mum to make phone calls to her, which he wastes all on them, where they basically just waste all of his time pretending to change the re-up name and all this kind of stuff. Debbie wants nothing to do with him. Eventually he comes out of jail, tries to get back in contact with everyone. They want nothing to do with him. So Will and Winnie are now together, so he doesn't have Winnie. Debbie has moved on to be with the Duke, who was another character that she was kind of teasing him with. So he essentially has no one, and Lorne can never have no one in his life. So Jamie Amy comes back into the picture and, basically trolls him. So all of a sudden he pretends he can look past her being a porn star, which... there's nothing wrong with being a porn star, but for him, he believes there is, because he's such a moral crusader. The pedophile, has very high standards. So anyway, they date for a bit. Jamie gets COVID. Now, I will say with all of this, so this was another kind of set of calls that has happened, but that was... which Reborn was streaming, but YouTube, being who they are, took his site down. So there is more to come out of this, so I'm not going to say too much about it, because there's more to come, and that's their story to tell, not mine. But essentially, Jamie gets COVID, she loses her voice during that, and then a robot pretty much takes over. So Lorne spends a hell of a lot of his time talking to a robot, which is just amazing. And that's pretty much where things are up to now. I've got no doubt he is actively being catfished right now. Obviously, we don't find these things out until later, because you don't want to reveal what you're doing, because amazingly, Lorne does have some people that are supporters of him, I guess, that will let him know these things. So that's essentially where we're up to. I hope that was helpful, and I hope I got most of that right. Like I said, apologies if I got anything wrong, and more than happy to be corrected on all of that. But yeah, I hope that helped. All right, delete your archives, guys. Bye.